touched down in Seoul today. More than 300 South Koreans were among 475 people detained at a Hyundai facility in Georgia a week ago. Federal officials say they were investigating allegations of unlawful employment at that plant. Some workers told NBC News they wwere relieved to be home. About 145 workers from other countries remain in detention.
Let's return now to our top story and the fallout after the killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk.
The father of two was gunned down during an event at Utah Valley University. Kirk's casket is now in his home state of Arizona after being flown there on Air Force Two. So far, funeral plans have not been announced yet. The suspect is in custody and is expected to face state charges. Authorities have identified him as 22-year-old Tyler Robinson of Utah. According to two senior law enforcement officials briefed on the investigation, Robinson's father allegedly contacted a family friend. Those officials say that family friend is a minister who then contacted the local sheriff's office.
Let's bring in NBC News Chief Justice and National Affairs correspondent Kelly O'Donnell, NBC News correspondent Stephanie Gosk, and NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos is here as well. Kelly, I'll go to you first. Where are we at this hour with this investigation?
Well, at this point, there are charges from the state level. The suspect, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson of Utah, in custody. And now the investigation expands to look at things that could give a picture of the kinds of contacts he may have had, perhaps some motivations. Also looking for ways to connect him to Charlie Kirk in terms of things like how was he made aware of the schedule and the timing. That all can be found typically in someone's electronic footprint. Did they have it in their calendar? Were they doing email searches or Google searches or that kind of thing? You get the picture there. So that is now fanning out. As was indicated, this is also a story about how a family is grappling with the fact that they recognize a loved one in the images that were released by authorities at a time when authorities did not know who this person was, where he was, just that he was tied to the rooftop and believed to be tied to movements that associated him with this crime. And so then we've had it playing out that a family tried to urge him to surrender. That we, based on our reporting, the father was involved, reached out to a family friend, a minister, and with that was able to begin to bring about this surrender. And so state custody now, it takes a period of a few days for all of the charges to be filed. That is something that is standard for Utah. And then on the federal level, they continue to do their work to see, are there any potential charges that would take this into the federal case. Murder is always a state level crime unless there are other charges that can be filed or other circumstances that can be brought to bear. This is the kind of thing where we have seen in other cases of a political nature. If it's an office holder, that is different under the law. Charlie Kirk, as influential and significant as he was, of course, did not hold elective office, and so doesn't fall under that category. So next steps are learning more about who this man is and what may have led him to it.
Kelly, thank you. Danny, I want to bring you in and talk more charges. As Kelly alluded to, according to NBC's reporting, the probable cause affidavit in this case indicates that there is enough evidence to potentially charge him with aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, and obstruction of justice. It's still not clear what prosecutors will charge him with, if any of those, but how might prosecution move forward here?
Aggravated murder, as you just saw on the screen, is the only one that really matters for purposes of Utah, and that's because it is the only capital offense. It is the primary capital offense, and it is the vehicle by which to seek the death penalty. The others are obviously very serious crimes, but that is your death penalty statute right there. Not all murder in Utah is death penalty eligible. Only aggravated murder, which is a version of murder plus special circumstances that make it especially heinous. And I have to note that in Utah, it's one of those rare states that still has the firing squad as an option for the death penalty. Only 5 since 1977 have gone that route, but that is a capital form of punishment in Utah.
Yeah, one of those happening this year, in fact.
Yeah, and quickly, federal charges could come as well.
They're a near certainty, and here's how they get there. Murder with a firearm is a federal crime. Now, realistically, it's almost never charged compared to how many murders are committed with firearms. But it is an option in the arsenal of the federal government. And we saw it most recently in the case of Luigi Mangione, who's accused of shooting the healthcare CEO with a firearm. You're going to have the same probable charges, also use of a firearm in the course of violence. Then you have stalking, which is also a federal statute. Likely to see, in my view, those statutes and maybe more.
Stephanie, let's bring you in here. Of course, we never want to overly focus on the suspected shooter. However, it is important to try and understand what may have motivated a crime like this. And you've been doing some reporting around language and messaging found on bullet casings. Can you explain what you're finding?
That's right. Yeah, the governor, Governor Spencer Cox, went over these casings. 4 casings. One was used. The other 3 were not. And there were messages on each of these casings. And now let me say, to that point, we don't know what the intent was of these messages. We don't even know how Tyler Robinson may have viewed these messages. But what we can do is say that there are connections to popular culture throughout these messages. I'll bring your attention to an unfired casing that had "Hey Fascist" catch. It was then followed by a series of arrows. That appears to be a connection to a game called Helldivers 2, where players use arrows as a way of signaling a move in the game, and that particular series of arrows signals an airstrike. And those arrows outside of the game, outside of the gaming world, have been used as responses to messages to someone you don't like or who has said something that you don't like. The other one that I'll bring your attention to is one that the governor said, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao. This is a lyric from an Italian song that was dedicated to the Italian resistance during World War II, the resistance that fought against Nazi Germans, and as well as fascist forces. It was also used, interestingly, in a television show, on a Spanish television show on Netflix. This is a show called Money Heist that was about a group of thieves that stole from the Spanish government. Again, these are connections to popular culture. It's